Yeah. So, hey man, welcome to VTS31. I thought I'd just sit here and chill out and drink my Coke Zero. Enjoy the sunshine of a lovely day, fan blowing on me. Not too hot today, not too cold. It's a good day. Hard drive went out. Second one in 3 months. 1.5 terabytes of backup storage gone. That's okay though. That's okay. Anyways, good to have you guys here. Hope you don't mind the strange opening. I thought I'd shake things up a little bit since I don't have my usual graphics and things like that. But welcome to VTS31. You guys who are new, I don't normally do things this way, but hey, what the heck, you know? Let's have some fun, do something different. My name's Keith, I'm your host, I guess, and good to have you guys. We're going to talk a little bit more about facial animation this month. Specifically, we're going to talk about eyes. Eyes. Alright, one of the things I want to talk about is a relationship of the skin under the eyes, specifically how eyes, the lower lids, don't really have any motivation on their own. They are really just a product of what's happening in the cheek muscles. Talk a little bit about shadowing the skin above the eye, the upper lid, how to shadow what's happening in the brows. We talked about brows pretty intensely last month, and we talk a little bit about it again this month. Eye movement, eye line. It's very important to make something feel like the character's actually looking where he's supposed to look. That's a very, very tricky little thing, because what you think would work, quote unquote, in reality, doesn't work. It's really strange, because with 3D programs, CG, you would think if I'm going to look at that thing over there, all I have to do is take the eye, aim at, and put it on that thing, and I'll be fine. 99% of the time, it doesn't work. So I'll give you little tips this month as to how to get through that. Blinks, just all the little things. Nobody teaches you this stuff. Nobody taught me this stuff. I just kind of figured it out, talked to other guys, saw what they did. So this is literally kind of like the little stuff you learn when you work at a studio. And everybody learns things a little bit different. So I'm just showing you my little way of doing things, and yeah, hopefully that saves you a little bit of time and trouble. And so without too much further messing around, let's go ahead and see what I have to say inside of my eye. All right, let's explain some of this stuff here. One of the things that you got to remember whenever you're dealing with the flesh at the bottom of the eyes, as I explained in the video part, is the lids don't really have any muscles down here. They generally tend to react in relation to what's happening in the cheeks. And just as I showed in the video, you can't move bottom lids really independent of the cheeks. They just don't have that ability. So the bottom lids are going to react really what's going on in the cheek area here with the mouth. Okay, so this is what's going to drive this. Okay, and so unless you are moving the cheeks in a certain way, like if we're going to do this and this, and now we're taking and we're compressing this business up here. If you're going to do that, then you can do this. Okay, and you should do that. It's almost as if all of these things are connected together. All right. Not that you want to hook them up that way, because you want to build some overlap and some other things into them. But you can think of them in that term, that whatever's happening in the cheek area here is going to show up in the lids. And I'm using this very simple rig to show you that this is something that you can use even in these free simple rigs that you can get online. It's not tricky rigging here that's going to give you the solutions that you're looking for. It's observation and applying it into your work. Okay, so if your character is going to frown like this and they're not in the middle of blinking, you can kind of get that, but
that's going to imply that there's something happening here in the cheeks. Okay. Anytime you do this, and I'm not saying that you can't do it, but it's just implying there's something in the cheeks. Now he doesn't have any cheek controls. There's nothing in this rig to move these pieces of the rig. So it's not exactly something that this rig will work with. But if you do have a rig, if you're working in a production where you do have that control, you can't just move the bottom of the lids. If you can move the cheeks as well, move them, okay? Because that's what's really driving the bottom of the lids. So that's just kind of a quick little cheapo, any rig will do kind of explanation of the connection between the cheeks and the lower lids there. I want to talk about blinks here, like I said I would. One of the things is, again, because the lower lids really don't have a lot of musculature to them themselves, they don't have much of an ability to move independent of the cheeks. When a character blinks, most of the action is happening in the upper lid. A little bit is happening on the lower lid. Okay, but your connection line is always going to be below that halfway point, right through the middle of the eye. Okay, so there's the halfway, the hemisphere marker for the eye, and the connection where the lids meet is always going to be below that. Not always, but if a character is blinking while they're smiling, you can kind of show that whole cheek business by having them blink up high like that, okay, because that's implying that the cheeks are doing more of the work. All right, so if we're going to have a character smiling, you can have them blink with that up, connected up there like that. Okay, so it's not a rule that that where the lids meet will always be below the halfway point, but in a general default, yes, I'm just going to blink. A guy's reading the paper kind of thing. Or just any default behavior. In general, you're going to find that the lower lids will move maybe 10-15% of the range, the upper lids will move the rest, and that's going to work for the most part. Okay. And as far as the shadowing goes, as when I was talking about the shapes here, this rig doesn't have the ability to do anything with it. I have some other rigs that could, but the basic idea is, if you have the ability to shape the upper lids and the lower lids, have them work in a way that what I call shadows what's going on with the brow. Okay, so if your brow is like this, then if your rig allows it, you'll want to have this angle somehow slightly represented in the eye. Okay, if you have the ability to do it in the rig. I'm just drawing it on here so you can kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about. So this angle, again, not exactly, but kind of what I call shadowed. It's just tries to get a little bit, so you reinforce this idea. All right. And that's just in keeping with what's happening with our faces normally. Some rigs will have the ability to shape the eyelid very specifically, and that's great, but some of them won't have it at all, like this one doesn't have it at all. And then some of them, all you can do is just rotate how the whole lid thing works. Okay, you can take this whole eyeball thing, you can rotate it in this direction so that the lids, the lid can do this. Or you can take this bottom lid and you can rotate it like that, so you can do something like that. If you can get simple Z rotation on just even the tilt of the lids, that's really helpful. And that would be probably one suggestion I would make to the person who rigged this, is to just give us the ability to spin these lids so that we can shadow what's going on here with the brows. All right, to kind of help reinforce it. Because the whole idea here is that if one part of the body is saying something, then let's try and get everybody speaking the same language or saying the same thing. And so that's kind of, that would be nice if this rig had it, but since it doesn't, it's something I recommend for building in. And if you go ahead and just turn off, this was referenced in You know, you can actually kind of force your way through it, you know, to kind of give an idea of what I'm talking about here. Take this, and so I'm breaking the rig. That's my prerogative, right? I can break the rig. If you're in a production and you break the rig and you're not supposed to, you'll probably have a talk with your boss. But make the request to get these things, and see how that just helps sell this. Just gives just by tilting the angle of this lid just a little bit, we help sell this idea right here. If we were then to go the other direction with this, yeah, doody doody doo. And again, we just see how something as simple as just tilting the lids to not mirror but to shadow what's going on with the brows just helps sell it a little bit extra. It's a simple little thing, but that's how you get that connection. And really the biggest problem with a lot of junior animator facial animation is you have these zones of movement that are happening completely independent of one another. And we don't want that. We don't want the sense that, you know, I've got 5 or 6 different moving pieces and we hope they all play together. No, the face is one instrument and it just has a lot of different buttons. It's kind of like a saxophone. You know, saxophone is one instrument, but it's got all those, you know, my little saxophone drawing right here. It's got all those buttons and levers and stuff all the way down. And one guy plays it and he uses his hands and he plays all these different buttons and levers, but it's still one instrument. That's really what the face is. Think of the face as one instrument, like a saxophone, okay? And it's got a lot of different little controls and stuff, but it should all be playing the same note. All right? You can only play one note out of a saxophone. You have lots of these little controllers in it, but you only have the ability to play one note at a time. Or play another one. Okay? You can only play one note at a time in a saxophone with all these buttons. You can only play one note at a time in the face with all these controls and all these regions of control. Okay? So maybe that'll help you think in terms of how to keep everything connected. All right, let's take a look at the timing of a blink. Now when it comes to blink timing, there is no law. These are only ideas, these are only suggestions, possibilities, right? So let's just go ahead and just build one out here real quick for you. Set a key on frame 1. When I'm working at 24 frames per second, I generally do blinks in what I would call a 2-2-4. What does that mean? Well, let's take a look. 1, 2 to get closed. So the bottoms we pull up a little bit, tops we pull down most of the way. And key those. Hold them for 2 frames, 1, 2, and then open in 4. So 2 to close, hold them closed for 2. You know, so it's 1 frame, 2 frames to close it. The frame that's closed counts as one of these 2. Okay. Hold it that way for 2. You can, if you wanted to, you can even compress them a little bit to kind of keep them alive. Like there's some kind of you change them a little bit or something just to kind of give it a little momentum or a little bit of a moving hold in there. You know, depending on the shot, if it's a close-up, you're going to want to worry about that sort of thing. And then it's 4 to open. So I'm going to use this and middle mouse over. Actually, no, I'll just do this. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to open. Okay. There you go. For the basics, okay. Now there's no easing or anything in that, all right? So that's just the basic. I gotta slap a blink in and I'm in a hurry, okay. 224 at 24 frames per second. It just generally works. From that, you can use all kinds of variations based off of the emotion of the character. There's no law that says you must do a 224. This is just my way this is my vanilla. I can put cherry toppings on this. I can put some, gummy bears in there. I can put some rainbow sprinkles on there. It's like, building a sundae. You got your bowl. You got to put your ice cream in. Okay, so there's your bowl, and we've got our vanilla ice cream. Now we want to put our chocolate topping. We're going to put our little sprinkles on there, and we want to put our gummy worms in the corner, and then we want to put our cherry on top. Okay, the vanilla 224. Can you do other things? Sure, you can do other things. One of the things you can do is, once you've got this blocked in, is you can then start working on giving these things a bit of a flavor. Like, you can make this close, instead of being so linear, it could be most of the way there, or it could ease out of that thing, or it can ease in, but generally it's not going to ease into a blank. This piece right here is generally going to be a little dragged, okay, not perfectly linear. And then here, the same thing. It's not going to be perfectly linear coming this way. By the time you get to here, it'll be most of the way open, okay? But not completely the way open. And that just gives it a little bit more of life right there. See that? Gives a little bit of an ease. Now all this is being done it's all being done at linear, so I'm not even messing with F curves yet. I just decided to get most of the way, more of the way open. And if we look at the curves here, animation editors, graph editor, and we were to take a look at the translate Y's, you see what I did is I created this ease out from this, and I created an ease in here, and I created this little extra moving hold there. There you go. If you wanted to, you can go ahead and spline that with the flats on the ends if you wanted to. Do this, take these and these, flatten them, and there you go. Pretty simple. Don't even have to overthink it very much. Do you want to shadow what's going on in the lids with the brows? Some people do, some people don't. Depends on the scene. The scene may or may not require it. But if you want to shadow it, what I like to do is I like to take the second frame of we got it closed in 2, hold it closed for 2. That's one where I'll usually take and do this little thing, so it comes a little bit later, okay? So I don't do the same 2-2-4 for the brows to shadow what's going on in the lids. That I'll just take 1, 2, the second, however late it's holding, 1, 2, I'll do, just to create a little bit of a drag to it. And then when I open it, I'll just key it back there, just to kind of create a little bit of overlap to it. Okay, and again, that's all fairly even. So what we would do is we just ease out of this. And I'm going to go ahead and use my my little tools here for breakdown next, which is just a little tool I had. What that's doing is that's just cheating this so it goes the next direction. Okay, and then here to ease out, I'll go ahead and key right there and then slide it over. And it's moving down a bit too much. I wouldn't do it because it's moving. It feels like it's connected to the lids, and I don't like that. So generally, what I would do is try and tone that down some. Okay, take all these. I don't like how much that's moving down, and I'd rather do that. So all I'm doing is I'm just changing how much it's moving down, and spline it if you like. Take the ends, flatten them. And it's just a little extra something to kind of help sell it. Alright. There's a little wobble on the lower lids, and that's just because I'm actually going below when I have them do this part right here. We're creating a wobble here, so we want to take a look at that to make sure that we're not doing something like this where we go below it and then come back up. So there we go. Okie dokie. And take all these, spline them, flatten them. There you go. Pretty simple, nothing crazy, but you know, so many times people are like, how do you know? I see blinks that are like clunky. This is a good way to make blinks that aren't clunky. It's a good little basic formula for blinks that it's a place where you jump off from. You're not going to solve everything. Not every emotional need for every scene is going to be solved by doing blinks this way. Okay, but this is a good general default. Get it in there kind of thing, and then maybe work on it from there. Okay, the other thing you can do is what I call, you know, the half blink, where let's go ahead and set that. Maybe a character is gonna, you know, they're sort of talking, and they're looking or something, and they're not going to completely blink, but you want to give the idea, because people half blink all the time. That's where the eyes don't get closed. It's more of a, I don't know. Usually when a person's talking and you want to show some sense of effort, of thought, or confusion, or maybe they're in the middle of looking at something and they stop and they look at something else, maybe like a mini take or something. A half blink works well, and for that I'll usually just do a, you know, I won't hold it closed because there is no close. It doesn't get held closed, but I'll get about half, the lid's about halfway down ish, and then down in 2 and then back in 3, because it's a half blink. It doesn't get all the way closed. So down in 2, 1, 2, 3, back in 3. Set these back all to 0. And you notice we do that all the time. So if you want to do something interesting, you know, you can have a character, you know, if they're talking, you notice how that just gives that, for reasons that are a complete and total mystery to me. 1, 2, 3. I guess I forgot to key those. Okay. You know, it just has a slightly different flavor. It feels like a blink, but it's not totally a blink. And you can do that for quick double blinks if you wanted to. You know, if you wanted to take all this and I'd probably do the half blink first, but if you wanted to do it after. But it doesn't work well combined with a real full blink to get a double. But that little half blink is a fine little trick. I don't know if you'd call it a trick, but it's something that you observe people do all the time. And it's good to put in for pieces for dialogue or something like that. If a character, again, you just find a place where a character isn't fully sure of what they're doing with a thought or with a word or a moment, or if they're distracted, or you just observe life around you. The half blink is something that happens in people's lives you do it all the time. You just don't know it. So what you need to do is turn on your Captain Observer brain and be Captain Observer. That's what your job is as an animator, is to observe how people do these things. And I'm telling you, here's a little construction about how you can do it. You know, a 2-3 half blink, all right? But as far as, you know, laws and when they use it, when not to use it, dude, you know, you really can't just you can't just sit there and use it like a piece of, you know, math that you would stick in to get an answer all the time. It just doesn't work that way. So what you need to do is, here's a little piece. It's a tool. It's a tool in your toolbox. Now you have to decide where you need to use it. Okay, so that's all I'm telling you, is it's something you can do. And I want to talk one more thing back here about the blinks here. We want to make sure that we don't have what I call zombie eyes. All right. You don't want to have frames where the pupils completely and utterly disappear. Right? One of the good reasons for easing the thing the way we did is to make sure that we didn't have a frame where the pupils were completely gone and all we had was white in there. Okay, that wouldn't be very good. All right. So one thing you'd want to avoid is you wouldn't want a frame where you have this. And see how that just makes him look like he's an undead monster from hell? I'm coming to eat your brains. I'm coming to eat your brains. I want to eat your brains. Okay, so that's just a little something to keep an eye out. So when you're going through these things, just make sure you don't have the zombie brains. Okay, that's just a cute little trick. Okay, let's talk about eyeline, because eyeline is really important, and I want to get that in before we run out of time here. Eyeline is one of those things. Man, I'll tell you, nothing drives me crazy like characters who don't look like they're looking at the right thing. So let's go ahead and build a situation here. Go ahead and build out a camera. Put the character in his world with the old camera here. And let's say we're going to have this character talking to another character who's standing right next to him. Okay. We'll create a NURB sphere, and we'll just pretend it's another character. Okay. Now they may be staged like this. Here's the thing. It's the only thing that's really important is what's it look like on the screen, unless you're in game animation, of course. But we want him to feel like he's looking at this. So let's go ahead and pose him a certain way so that it feels like he's looking at this guy. Alright, build a nice comfortable little pose. Do a little something here, do a little something here. Like he's going to be talking to this guy right here. I'm a guy. Hi, how you doing? I'm a guy. And he's going to be talking to him. Now we don't want this to feel like he's looking off at something over here. We want it to feel like he's looking at him. Now, what happens a lot of times, this guy doesn't have an AMAT control in his thing. He's got these individual line controls, which is actually good. Get used to individual eye controls, because that's what's going to give you the kind of look that you want. Okay, let's go ahead from over above. What a lot of guys will do is they'll take, if there's an aim control in this guy, is we'll take and they'll have him quite literally looking at this guy properly. Like they put the aim control right here. Well, he's looking at him, so let's put the aim control right there. Well, what does that look like in the camera view? You can't see his eyes because they've disappeared behind the back side here. Okay, so physical accuracy is not as important as the impression of him looking at him. Okay, and we want to have the sense where the eyes are lining up. And I'm going to turn these things off so I don't fight my way past them. Okay, and let's go ahead and take that stuff and turn it off and turn those off. No, we want to keep those on. All right, we want to have the sense where it feels like he's looking at him. Okay, it feels like he's looking at him. We want to have that definite connection. All right, but where's he really looking? He's actually looking out here in front of him. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The most important thing is that in this view, the one that we render and show the audience, it looks like he's looking at him. Okay, that's really important. The other thing is we don't want to lose the pupils back behind the eye too much. So, for instance, let's say we turn his head this way, and as you turn the head, you're going to have to animate the eye to keep that relationship. Okay, but that's fine. Again, if we look from above, he's still looking out here in front of him, out here. That's fine. It looks like he's looking at him. That's all that matters. We have to draw this line in the camera view, okay? The one that we render and let the audience watch. All right, so that's the one that's important. As far as the pupil, sometimes what people will do is they'll get caught up in this physical accuracy thing here, and you don't want this, because now the pupils are disappearing and you can't really quite tell where they're at. I kind of have a rule about how much of the pupil do we show. I kind of go with the 1/3 hidden. Okay, so let's say let's use a color that'll actually show up, doof. All right, let's say we have an eye here. Now let's say we have a pupil inside this eye. Go ahead and we'll make it black. Doody doo, doody doo, doody 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 doo. Okay. I have this thing where you can move this thing all around. Touching is fine, but I don't ever want to lose more than 1/3 of the eyeball here, or I mean of the pupil. If we get past it, imagine this is cut off here. Let's say we've just got this thing right here. Okay. So that we've colored all that in, so that you can lose 1/3 of the eyeball, or eyeball, 1/3 of the pupil. I don't mind losing 1/3 behind the backside of an eye. Anything more than that, though, and it really starts to look kind of goofy. All right. So this can move all over the place, but if he's going to look over here, hey buddy, what do you want? Yeah? You can go about that far at the extreme. Most of the time I try and keep most of it visible. Is that an absolute law? Again, no, but it's a good rule of thumb. Okay. So when you get something this extreme, just kind of pull it back a bit. And I really don't get lazy with the eyes. If you have individual controls, use them, all right? Because you're going to want things to look a certain way. And if you don't have individual controls, if you're the rigger, make them. Or if you're not the rigger, go to your rigger and ask for them. Okay? Let's talk about another thing with eyeline here. Let's say that this right here is just some shiny little bauble out here in front of him. And we'll put it over here, kind of in the camera view. Okay. And we can tell that it's very much in front of him, like right down here just in front of the camera. So when he's looking at this thing, this is where stuff gets tricky when you're looking in depth. Drawing, the AMATs don't work, like if I were to just take the AMAT and stick it out here and kind of, put it on this surface right there, it kind of gets you close, but it doesn't do the trick. One way you can, there's a couple of ways you can do things, but really you just want to get the sense that this is aiming at it. I like this controller because it has these lines coming off the eye, so it gives you a sense of, you can kind of line it up. What would really be nice, again, is if you had the ability to make this line grow longer or shorter, so you can kind of make it line up. Okay. So if we would take this and extend it out, shooting a little bit higher, and take this and extend it out, they're a little crossed. And really what you want to do is you want to have this, where they cross, somewhere right in front of it. That's, again, not an absolute, but it's a good rule of thumb. So he's okay. So we want to have the sense where this is coming right off of that, and this is coming off of that, and they're crossing on the back side of it. Better, okay? So take this one, and so if we would take and just draw it straight off of that, and take this and draw it straight off of that, and we're crossing somewhere right in there, which is about right. And notice how that feels like he's looking at this thing out in front of him, and actually it's looking like he's looking right about here. So I'm going to go ahead and take both of these and just nudge them over a little bit. All right, so that's looking like he's looking kind of out here. And we'll take this one up a little bit, and it's real particular, but you got to take the time to make sure your eye lines work, because if not, your characters don't feel like they're in the same scene together. They don't feel like they're talking to each other. It feels like you got one character doing his thing and another character doing his thing, and they don't look at each other. And since CG, especially in CG, because the sense of depth is so distinct in CG, that you can get in real trouble with eye lines if you're not careful to really look at how this is working. Now, this looks good from this scene. You know, it looks like he's looking right about here. Again, let's take a look at where he's actually really looking. Okay, and if we were to take a look at it, the ball is here, and his eyes are looking kind of off here. Okay, I could probably draw that a little bit better, don't you think? So they're kind of looking back here, and you're thinking, well, fix it, dude. I mean, have him look where he's supposed to look. Well, if I did that, I would take both of these things, and if I rotated them so that it, let me see here, just take this and do global. If I took and rotated them so they were looking where they're supposed to look, which is right here. Okay, we take and we make them look right here. When we go back here, it doesn't look like he's looking at it at all. It's like this weird optical illusion. Okay, you're thinking, well, okay, well, what's it look like from the side then? All right, fine. We'll just do a pure AMAT. All right, so his eyes are going down, so they're looking under it. So what we want to do is we want to have him look up a bit. So go ahead, fine. We'll have them look up so that they're looking pretty much right at the ball now. Okay? It still doesn't look like he's looking at this thing. Now that is physically accurate, but it doesn't look right. I have no real reason to explain to you why that is, other than to say 99% of the time whenever you do something physically accurate in space, it doesn't look right. At least in CG. I don't know why. All I know is it doesn't work. So we've got some stagecraft here that we have to keep in mind. This is looking at this exactly, but it doesn't look like he's looking at that. It looks like he's looking somewhere over here. Okay? So, you know, maybe somewhere right about here. It feels like he's blind. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to make sure it looks like now that for some silly reason looks like he's looking at that, but he's not looking at that. He's looking somewhere off over here. But in this world, it just works. You know, you can maybe get a little bit closer if you want, and that feels pretty good. But that's still nowhere. It's still nowhere accurate. I mean, this is down below. Golly. I cannot draw a straight line to save my soul today. Still going below. And if we look at the top, he's still looking off to the side of it. No explanation as to why, but that's really important. If you don't do this right, you're going to have a scene that just doesn't look like the character's looking at it. They're talking to one another, and that's really important that you do that. The last thing I want to offer before we wrap this up on the details of the eyes is saccadic eye movement. Okay, what is saccadic, or I guess that's how you say it, saccadic eye movement. And that is eye darts. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this half blank right now because I don't want to. It's going to mess up my scene. So I'm just going to delete those keys. I said I'm going to delete those keys. Thank you. Okay, the eye dart, you know, a lot of times it's been very popular to add since, you know, Pixar added it a couple of years ago in their scenes, and so everybody's adding it. But you got to understand how to do it. Eye darts are very fast. All right, they're fast and they're lightweight. People don't move their eyes smoothly from point A to point B. In fact, if a character is going to look from here to here, the way we animate a lot of times is a simple, smooth line. But that's really not how That's really not how our eyes work. If we animated our eyes exactly the way they worked, it would feel a little bit weird, so we kind of cheat it a little bit. The way our eyes work is we go to here and stop. We go to here, stop. We go to here to stop. And we pick that last little bit right there. Or we go from here to here and stop. From here to here and stop. From here to here and stop. And from here to here and stop. And from here to here and stop. Our eyes are all over the place. We're constantly darting them around, looking at each other. When characters are talking, they talk to each other's golden triangles. They look at each other's eyes and mouth. You know, the stuff is tracking all over the place. And what we do is we're constantly checking around the eyes and the mouth, eyes and the mouth, eyes and the mouth. So that's a good little thing you want to do. If a character's listening and they're listening intently to another character talk, is have their eyes dart back and forth on this little triangle. Here's a web page that kind of shows you what I'm talking about. I think here's the link right here. DCSQUMULACUK blah fabric Saccadic. Just do a Google Saccadic eye and you'll see it. And here's a picture of a lady, and what they did is they tracked how somebody looks at her. And you can see the little black lines show that there's heavy use of eye movement back and forth across the eyes and the mouth of the lady, and plus the eye is checking out other parts of the face as well for you know, just to kind of pick things up, because we're constantly scanning things. So here they just showed a picture of a person, and they just tracked how people's eyes were going across, or I don't know how they do it. Just stick lasers in their eyeballs. I don't know how they do it, but this is what they did. They tracked it, and so it gives you an idea as to how the motion works. You see that there's this, especially on, zoom in if you can. You see these little figure 8 things right here where we overshoot, come back, and then go over. We overshoot, come back, and come over. Like here, this little figure 8s. If you can work that into your work, hey, great. If not, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world, because it's animation. We're not motion capturing eyes. I just offer that to you as a way of, when do you use eye darts? Sometimes people just throw them in there. Gosh, I've been in situations where directors have said, well, put an eye dart in there, without really knowing why, just because I think they want the scene to not be dead. Like anything in animation, you can overdo it. But how do we do eye darts? Well, I do them fairly simply. I set a key, and I keep them all linear. I never spline out eye darts. I keep them linear. I just don't spline them. There's no point. The things they're little Saccadis. They're quick little movements. They're like fireflies. So don't worry about splining them, because it takes some of the life off of them. So let's say I want to do a little quick eye dart here. So I'll set a key, and then I'll go out like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 keys. And then I'll just rotate them a little bit to give the eye dart. Okay? You're thinking, 4 frames, that's not a dart. And you're right, it's not a dart. And then what I do is I go out to 3 frames, and I just key it again, and then I take the 3 and the 4 and I tuck them right back next to the 1. Alright? That's it. Let's take a look at that. I'm going to rotate X here. What I'm doing here is I'm just creating this little it's an ease out, where it covers, let's say, about 70-80% of the motion in one frame, and then the last 20% on the next frame. So if we were to kind of pull these back to where they were, we go out 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to the end of our eye dart. Alright, and then I just go back 1 frame and I key it. So it's not really changing anything. I'm just setting a key where that is in its relationship. And then I just take these and I just pull them back, creating this quick little eye dart thing. And again, you don't need to spline this, because I'm building the ease right in here. I tried splining him at first, but it just made him look drunk, like he couldn't focus. So keep your character's eyes flitting about very, very quick and very light. Don't bother splining it, because you don't need to spline everything in life. Okay, and we want to do this again, and you say, well, what if you don't have 4 frames to work with? Okay, so here's what you do: go back to where you have 4 frames, go off 1, 2, 3, 4, and set those keys, go to back to 1, 2, 3, you know, set that, take both of them, slide them back to 1, and then take this and put it where you want it. Alright, now what I did is I had him look this way and then this way. That's generally, we don't often Saccadi like that. We do, but not always. Oftentimes what we'll do is we'll go one direction and then come back the other direction. So what does that look like? I'll take and do this again because it doesn't hurt to do it a couple of times. So let's say we want to look back. Don't do ABA. And what is an ABA? It's when you start at pose A, go to pose B, and then come right back to pose A. It doesn't look too good. It looks not so good. What we want to do is ABC. Okay? C may be near A. So don't just take this key right here and just copy it. All right? Come back this way if you want to come back this way. So set a key to, you know, hold that and hold your eyes tight. There's no need to do moving holds on eyeballs moving about. Okay? That stuff can be, like I said, perfectly linear. Hold these things solid. All right, come back 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say he'll come back and come here, key that, take both of these, nudge him right up against it, and then slide that where we want it. Okay, notice how I came back, but I didn't come back. This is not exactly the same as this. Okay, we can get in here and zoom in real close so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, started here, went here, held here, came back here, but here is not the same as here. All right, that's going ABC. All right, pose A, pose B, pose C. C is similar to A, but it looks better than going, you know, right back to A again. Okay, so probably need to go ahead and build out some pad to this. Now, this rig is built in pretty well because the eyelids follow along with the eye aim. Most rigs these days are built to have that capability, but if your rig doesn't have that capability, that's something you'll need to animate yourself, where the lids follow the movement of the eyeball. It's not a one-to-one relationship either. If the eyeball moves this much, the lid will move maybe 2/3 as much. If that. And again, it's not a law, it's just a general idea. It's a starting place. And you may say, well gosh, 2/3 doesn't look right. I can't move it because Keith said 2/3. No. It's an idea, okay? So if you need to move it less, dude, move it less. If you need to move it more, go ahead, move it more. There's no laws to this stuff. It's just trying to give you some ideas to kind of give your characters a little bit of life when they look at things. Okay? And so that's how you do your little eye darts. I know these are all kind of little ticky-tacky little things, but this is stuff that, you know, there's no tutorials for this stuff online. This stuff isn't written in books. There's no DVDs for this. I've never seen anybody else teach this stuff, and it may seem like, gosh, there's not a lot of meat here this month, but this is the stuff that I tell you what. The first time you get into a film project or the first time you get into a project, this will save you at least a day on every shot going into dailies, because you won't have notes from the director saying it doesn't look like he's looking at him, and then you have to go back to your desk and go, gee, how do I fix that? Now you know how to fix it. Okay. And so I've given you a couple little production tricks to help you get through some things, and that's what they are. They're not absolute solutions. They're just production tricks. They're built off of, you know, several years of doing this stuff and doing it well and knowing what works and what doesn't work. So these are jumping off points. This is not the end of the discussion. It's just a place for you to kind of understand a good starting point, and then you can explore and try some different things on your own, and maybe you'll find some cool things and, you know, maybe teach me some stuff, and that would be pretty cool too. So that's what I got on the eyes for this stuff, at least as far as in Maya here.
All right, well, I hope that was helpful to you. Like I said in the recapture stuff, these aren't rules. It's not like, oh, I did my blink on 3, 2, 5. Kate's gonna kill me. I don't care. I'm not master of the universe. He-Man, master of the universe. Da, da, da. Who's my Skeletor? Anyways, no, they're concepts or ideas. They're starting points. You could call them formulas. That's fine. The world is built on formulas. The building that you're sitting in right now stays up because somebody figured out a formula to make it work. Okay, the car you drive around in, it works because somebody figured out a formula to make the engine have power. Okay, formulas aren't necessarily a bad thing. Being a slave to a formula is a bad thing. Okay, so it's your job not to be the slave. I'll give you the formulas, I'll give you some things, but now your job is to go out and observe, look at life around you, see what people are doing, and you know, if you feel awkward watching people, movies are great, man. Just take a movie, pop a DVD in, and just watch it. Turn off the sound though, because the sound for some reason just sucks us in when we start watching the movie, and we stop studying the movie. So. But movies are great for that. Just pop them in. They don't care. They want you to watch them. That's why they're in there. How about that? The invitation to observe. So anyways, observe how life is behaving around you, and start working up your own ways to apply these things. Okay? Again, this is stuff that I don't know how earth-shattering it's going to be for some folks. It's going to be like, well, I already knew all this. Some folks are going to be like, I've never heard anybody say anything about this in all my life. So I just figure part of the reason I'm doing VTS is to get thorough and dig into everything. I mean, we're 31 videos in, and I still got a lot more stuff to talk about because this is all stuff that, you know, an editor would say, can we take that part out of the book? It's just not that terribly interesting. And if I was just making a 3-hour DVD set for $50, you know, the guys, the editor of that would say, let's speed this up here a little bit. So sometimes when you have 30, 40, 50 videos to make, I think I got a lot of videos yet to make. Sometimes it's good to just relax, take our time, dig deep, get into the little things. Channeling my inner Dave Tart right now. Most of you have no clue what that means. That's okay. Till next month, everybody be good. God bless.